Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to Spirit Speakeasy. I'm Giovanni, Joyful Medium. I'm a working psychic medium, energy healer, and spiritual gifts mentor. This podcast is like a seat at the table in a secret club, but with mediums, mystics, and the spiritual luminaries of our time. So come behind the velvet ropes with me and see inside my world as I chat insider style with profoundly gifted souls. We go deep, share juicy stories, laugh a lot, and it wouldn't be a speakeasy without great insider secrets and tips. You might even learn that you have some gifts of your own. So step inside the Spirit Speakeasy. Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome into the Spirit Speakeasy. Today we're going to do something a little different. I've been experimenting a little bit with doing readings on this platform, and so today you're going to get a seat at the table inside a mediumship reading. We've got a willing participant, and as you will soon see, some very willing spirit people on the other side who are excited to communicate and give information, all of which was validated. And there are a few pieces that Rich shares with us at the end. And some more validation, I'm sure, that is soon to come with some things that he wasn't quite sure or couldn't quite remember, which, it's a normal part of it. We can't remember everything that's ever happened to us. But I'm excited for you, those of you who either have had readings before and know how powerful these experiences can be, or for those of you that have never experienced a reading, just to kind of see, the vibe of it, the mood of it, if you will, the intention of it, and just to know that it really does validate for us that our loved ones are still with us, just in a different way, that love never dies, and that their souls continue on and have all of their memories and can spend time with us. And I love that each of Rich's people that came forward share different aspects of themselves. And, some talk about their passing and some talk about their personality and some talk about memories. And it's a little different, but you are going to get a seat at the table inside an actual mediumship reading. So get a cup of tea or a cup of water or a cup of something and sit down with me for this next hour inside the Spirit Speakeasy, your seat at the table for mediumship reading with our guest, Rich Bennett. Welcome in to the Spirit Speakeasy. We are doing something a little bit different today. I am here with Rich, and we are going to, as promised way back when I started this podcast, we're going to do some experimental just mediumship readings sometimes and getting to kind of sit in on someone's reading session. So I'm just going to kind of launch in just like I would in a normal session. Now, full disclosure, I wouldn't say I know Rich, but I've met Rich because he interviewed me for his podcast recently. And then I asked him since he's so comfortable recording, if you catch the video version of this, he's got his whole own setup. So I asked him if he'd be willing to come on and let me try to do a reading for him. But I don't know, Rich, have you ever had a reading before?
Not like this, not in person.
Not like
I think I
this.
mentioned before about during COVID, I had taken the photo and sent it to somebody. That was it.
Okay, you
But
took a
I don't
photo
think
and
I've
they did
actually,
kind of a reading based on a photo
yeah,
for
I don't
you.
think
Okay.
I've actually had a reading.
Well, I will just tell you a little bit about how I work and what to expect. It's a little different every time, but there are a couple different things
Right.
that can happen, and it might kind of help everyone to learn a little bit about how this works. So there's essentially two things that can happen. Psychic is when I'm more connecting my energy into your space, blending with your soul, understanding things going on in your life, choices you're making, that kind of thing. If for some reason that becomes a part of our work, I might be aware of bits of your past. Rich is making a scary face for those of you that can't see him. But usually, if I am aware of bits of your past, it's only to understand what's happening for you now and potential guidance for the future. I don't believe anyone can predict the future. I say it over and over again because to predict the future would mean it's already decided for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe that's how it works. I think we, as we make choices, I think new paths become available to us. So I think it's more important to focus on the now and potentials for the future. So I can sometimes be aware of, if you keep going in this direction, making these choices, these are the likely outcomes. Sometimes I can be aware of additional potentials or possibilities that you may or may not have already considered. Uh, Mediumship, which I feel like this is probably more of what we're going to do today, but we'll see. Mediumship, of course, is when we're connecting with someone that's already crossed over to the other side. The type of mediumship that I practice is technically called evidential, which really just means that when someone's loved ones communicate, I like them to share at least some specific details
Right.
of who they were in the world as quote unquote
Excuse me.
evidence that
Mm-hmm.
you can validate. And I will tell you, though, that the evidence, quote unquote, that they share really just depends on them. Some will make their personalities really clear. Some will have me use wording in a way that I wouldn't normally word that sounds exactly like the way they would say something or what they would say. Some will make me aware of details or memories of their life. Some want to talk about their passing and some don't. So, just like a conversation with any person, I try to
Mm-hmm.
honor and respect what they want to talk about and where they want to go with the conversation. Ah, what else do I want to tell you? Really, all I need from your side is for you to just say yes, no, or I don't know as I give you the details.
Right.
Um, don't be afraid to talk to me. Like, don't feel locked in a box like you can only say those three answers and
Oh no,
nothing
I'm an
else.
open book. Yeah, no, seriously, I've been looking forward to this. And as we
I'm
discussed
excited.
before, I'm really because if it was up to me, I would have somebody from the spirit world on my podcast and talk to them if I could.
Well,
I mean,
I mean, we could talk about that because I think there's ways to do that in a different way, maybe. Um, so yeah, don't be afraid to say more than just yes, no, I don't know, but
right,
just try not to finish the stories for me. And then I do
right,
want to save a little time at the end for you to kind of give some feedback about whatever comes up or whatever we talk
okay,
about. Now we will see. Now, what I do want to, I tend to be a full disclosure kind of a gal. So when I was on your podcast, I don't usually do readings on podcasts or radio shows or whatever, but I did become aware of I think it was your dad and your brother.
yes,
And I know I gave you just little bits about each of them. I mean, we're talking like 30 seconds of details, maybe.
right,
So not much. I don't remember. I don't remember any of it. But if I do remember something and know that I already know it, I try to just let you know I already knew this. And then usually they're adding to it for me. Do you have questions about the process? I know you said you're an open book and you're just excited to dive in. So
no, no, not really. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people that have done this before.
yeah,
My sister's done it. Yeah, family members, neighbors. Um, so no,
that's so cool. All right. Well,
yeah, I'm ready.
this is the part that I feel like is a little weird for a podcast, but I usually become quiet and just kind of open my awareness for a minute here. I can already kind of feel yours gathering. So I'm just going to kind of start to move my awareness to the spirit side. I do want to say I'm immediately aware of your dad and your brother again. So let me work with them first. And then I have a feeling, I mean, I'm aware of more with them. So they'll open the door and let's let everyone identify themselves. Let me start with this gentleman who I feel like is dad. Now, I do remember that your dad had previous military service. Is that correct
Yes.
from my memory? Okay. I want to say he comes in with such a sarcastic but like charismatic sense of humor, and he's kind of like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna start the show. Does that feel like his personality to you?
Oh yes.
Because there's this feeling with him that, like, I do feel like if suppose there was like a gathering at home and he hadn't been home yet, I do think he'd throw open the door and be like, let the party start. I'm the the life of the party is here. So this like outgoing side of his personality.
Uh-huh. 100%.
What's interesting though is even as I say that, I'm aware that sometimes he uses this larger than life part of himself to kind of detract or hide some of the harder emotions that he has. Do you know what I mean? Let me go into it a little bit.
Okay.
It's okay to say no to me too if you don't understand or if it's totally
Right.
wrong. It helps just as much as I'm not afraid of the no's. It helps just as much as the yeses do, because there's this feeling with him that sometimes it's like he doesn't want to talk about the hard situations. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like if he
Okay.
and your mom had a disagreement or weren't seeing eye to eye on something, ultimately he makes me feel like, well, it's going to be his way at the end of the day anyway. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And he doesn't necessarily have to sit down and say, well, how do you feel about my decision? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And actually, I'm aware that he has very little space for other people's opinions about his decisions. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I guess you could say he
Like
was old school.
he's not taking surveys
Right.
or
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
And I do want to say, even as I say that, he identifies now. Obviously, we know you've got your brother on the other side and you, but are there 4 of you all together?
For
Siblings?
yes.
Okay, because it's this feeling of like when he is in his role as a dad, if he's going to dole out punishment or if he's going to say like now you're all in trouble, he makes no apologies for the way in which he disciplines. Can you understand that?
Mm-hmm.
But as I'm saying that, he makes me aware that there's times where from his perspective now, he's aware that his disciplining could be heavy-handed. Is that fair to say? I'm going to work with it, but
Yeah, I guess.
there's just you have a sister as well. Is there one of you? Is there a
Yes.
sister in the mix? Because he's saying he did try to maybe not discipline her as harshly. But I also want to say there's this feeling with him of understanding that sometimes he even spoke to her in a way that was maybe more harsh than he needed to. Can you take it that way, the way I'm saying it?
Yeah.
Uh, but he's saying with the boys, it's more of this fear of, well, if I don't, it's kind of that spare the rod, spoil the child emotion with him. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So in that way, I know that's where I am with him, like making no apologies for how stern he was, how strict he was. And he's saying, you guys kind of gave him a run for his money. So can you feel him identifying it that way? Where it's like you're not that you're like the worst kids, but you're also not, with your pocket protectors and all buttoned up. Is that fair to say? You guys are a little mischievous, is the feeling. Now, is there a story where 2 of you boys and a friend get into a neighbor's it's some kind of like a vehicle, and I can't even tell if this vehicle works anymore, if it's a vehicle that they were working on, and we're just kind of like exploring and creating mischief at a neighbor's house. Let me get a little more specific in here. I know this is a little big. Okay, let me back up a second. Where you guys grow up, you understand it being suburban, but the houses aren't like super close together where you can like touch your neighbor's house, how we can now.
Oh, not. I mean, they were close, but not that close.
Right.
Here.
So you have like a yard, you have like a bit of like, you
Right.
could see your neighbor's house, but it's like there's a fence in between and it's kind of that,
Right.
a little more spread out. Not quite, it's not countryside though. It's not rural, right? It's just suburban, but a little more space is the way I want to say it.
Yeah.
He keeps bringing me to home that I know that's in Jersey where it's like a front yard, a backyard, a little bit of side yard, fence on both sides. And neighbors would have kind of something similar probably. Is that right?
Yes.
Because there's this feeling of like 2 down. They have some kind of almost like a ride-on mower is what I want to say. Do you remember one of your neighbors having one of those?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I feel like it's kind of a big deal that they have this. And he's talking about you, a brother and a friend making mischief with this ride-on mower. Do you know the story that I'm talking about? I know we're digging way deep in here. And I don't think it's anything that like you have to pay for damages. I don't think it's anything that serious, but it's just this feeling of like either you guys weren't supposed to be on it in the way that you were, or they weren't home and you guys got into their little shed and got it out. Does that make sense the way I'm saying it?
Yeah. God, I'm trying to remember. Because I mean, we got into a lot of.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll pin that story back there because I feel like all the elements are there. So I want to say, I'm sure your dad's right on this. And he's just saying, like, it's like, if you guys did get in trouble, mom would be the first one to get the news. And then it would be like, oh, when your dad gets home. So, this emotion with him of, well, he kind of is the enforcer. Do you know what I mean? So he's like, well, what am I supposed to do except enforce? Because I got to instill in these boys, you know what I mean? This, who we need and want them to be in the world. Do you know what I mean? Now, your dad has a higher power of his own understanding. Can I say that about him? Meaning, I don't think he's a man that goes to church every week, but I feel like he's raised with a faith that he understands a God of his own understanding. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Now, your mom goes to church, though. Is that right?
She went more than dead.
Yeah, because there's this feeling, as I'm saying it, he's like, well, my wife was like, I went sometimes, I like did the holiday thing, or like, I could feel it's the way he's indicating it is like she would give him a pass and then she'd start getting frustrated, like, hey, you need to be, you can't just never come and then he'd make an appearance, kind of a thing.
Uh,
But there is this feeling with him of having those type of, can we call them like Christian or Catholic values of what he wants to instill in his family. Do you know what I mean?
yes.
And he's saying it doesn't matter. I feel like this is such your dad's personality. It doesn't matter if I'm not at the building all the time. I know the rules and you're going to follow them. So it's that type of wanting to instill
My house,
these.
my rules.
Yeah, exactly. But even like the church house, meaning like he's not in God's house all the time, but like these are the rules and you're going to follow it because we're a good, Catholic family or Christian family or whatever it is. Your dad does have a sense of humor. And that's the other thing is it's like it's never a dull moment at your house. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's like between you boys and all the friends that would be over, and you know what I mean? It's like it could be a little ruckus in there. Now, do you guys have some sort of like a game room or like we call it like a rumpus room where I grew up, but did you have one of those downstairs or in your
Yeah.
house? Because he's wanting to take me down there when I'm talking about like the ruckus that you guys could cause. He's wanting to take me down there. Now, you remember it having kind of wood paneling on the walls in there? And there's a little bit of a smell in there. It smells like home, but it almost reminds me of like a little bit of a damp, kind of like it's not quite a mildewy smell, but it smells different than upstairs to me. So you remember there being like a distinct different smell. Now, I want to say he's saying like the intention of this room was to be like a family room and a game room and somewhere to like send the kids to be not running around the whole house, right?
Yeah.
But he's talking about as you guys get older, this clubhouse of a room becomes a little bit of like a room for mischief sometimes. I'm going to get into that. I can see by your face that you do recall some stories. Okay. Was there occasionally possibly some little bits of drinking that happened down there with you kiddos? You're making a face like, who, me? I'll take that as a yes, Rich.
Yes.
But he's just saying, on one hand, your dad is very like, well, kids will be kids. And as long as you keep it quiet and it doesn't become a big issue, he's willing to look the other way. But he's kind of joking and saying, but if your mom gets a wind of it, then I'm going to have to do something about it. Do you know what I mean? Because I want to say your dad's not, he doesn't make a big deal of you guys like having a sip of his beer at like a barbecue or whatever. It's not a big deal. And I do think you guys are bringing little bits of beer or whatever from other dads' fridges. Is that fair to say? Like everyone's getting a hold of something and kind of bringing it together at different points.
Oh, you mean all the kids? You mean?
Yeah, the kids. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Well, your dad clearly knows about all this now, so don't worry about letting the cat out of the bag. I think all of you got in all the trouble you were going to about it. And it's just this feeling with dad of wanting you to know that like, I saw more than you thought I saw, and I knew more of what was going on. But even as I say this, and as your dad, I know it's just his personality to be like a storyteller and reminisce. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's this feeling with him of, but look how great you turned out. Do you know what I mean? And I want to jump forward to, I feel like you mentioned that you have military service, right?
Yes.
And I know that your brother had a short time of military service as well. Does your dad have a brother that's also military at some point?
He had a brother. I'm not 100. I believe he was in the military. Yeah.
Because there's this feeling with your dad of like, no, we're a military family. Even though we don't force it on our boys, they know we would think it's a good idea kind of a thing where it's like, well, I'm not gonna say no. Like for him, it's a service that he's very proud of. And there's this feeling of you making him so proud when you enter the military, because I feel like he knows your brother is going to enter, but you're surprised. Is that fair in the way I'm saying it? It's
a surprise that I entered.
You surprise him that you choose to enter the military service. Does that make sense the way I'm saying it?
In a way, yeah.
Okay, let me work with it a little bit, because he makes me feel like you were on the fence, like that was not your only option. And with your brother, it's kind of like it was clear that's where he was going to go. He was going to go that direction. we all knew it. But with you, it's almost like you were involved in a couple other things. One of them feels sports to me. And we weren't sure if like you were going to want to do college or you were going to work right away. Or what you were going to do. But there is this feeling. Did your dad have a talk with you about that being a good option for you, military?
Yeah.
Is he the one that actually takes you into a recruiter's office? Like, I know it's different back
I'm
then.
trying to remember.
We're digging way back into the memory of it.
God.
It's okay if you can't remember too. It's fair to say you don't
I can't remember if he took me because I can't remember.
Because there's this sense of him taking you there before you actually sign up, as like a hey, if we're checking out options, then like let's check out this option too.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I want to say your dad he wasn't gonna force his way on you and tell you this is what you have to do, but he's also not quiet about his opinions. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
he lets his preferences be known. And then there's this feeling of you in particular having more than one option of a path you could choose. And him just being so elated and excited that you do choose to enter the military. There's something about it making him feel good about his path in the military. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did he articulate that to you ever?
Before I went in.
Yeah. Because that's this feeling of like, while he, I know, was trying to be reserved, I could feel the way he's saying it is like your mom was like, don't force that boy to do the military. Like you let him have his opinion, but he's over there like, all right, well, you're going to choose, but like, I'm so happy you're picking this type of a feeling, like really excited. And I want to say your dad doesn't get super excited about stuff you do all that often. You know what I mean? It takes a lot to kind of get him really pumped up about it. And even though he's saying you exit early, so you don't have a full career military, is that right?
Yeah, I wish.
Just short of that, he's saying it doesn't matter to him that you exited early. He's just so proud that you could see. It's almost like you saw him. Do you know what I mean? By you entering the military, you saw, oh, this is what my dad did. This is what my dad chose for his family. And you, as much as I know he wouldn't say it this way when he was here in the world with us, you validated him with your choice and made him feel like you accepted him in a different way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there's this feeling of like you could have pushed more against that military thing, and maybe it wasn't. Is this a draft that we're talking about? Is this draft time?
I'm not that old.
I don't know how old you are. And I know we get drafted for all different reasons.
Yeah, no.
So he just makes me feel like you have a choice. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not the only option for you. And there is just this feeling with him of don't worry about not having done like your quote unquote full service. He's equally proud of you, just that you went and just that you did it. Now, I am aware of your brother, I have to say. I'm going to bring him in as well. I want to know what else your dad wants to say about this, but I can hear your brother in my mind chiming in and making many jokes about this of like, oh, what I hear him saying, and then I want him to validate himself a little bit, is like, oh, Rich is the golden boy and Rich is the favorite. But you know, that would be his personality to tease you like that.
Yeah.
Because are you younger than this brother?
Yes.
Oh, because he keeps wanting to like be like, oh, baby Rich. Like, do you know what I mean? But I feel like that's just his way to razz you and way to get like a rise out of you when you guys are kids. Do you know what I mean? Now, with your brother's service, is there an unusual circumstance around his exit from the military?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I'm going to get it exactly, but he makes me feel like you guys exit in different ways. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Did your brother pass away during his time of service?
No.
So he does get to come home and be home.
Yes.
Is he injured during his service?
No.
Let me see if what I'm not understanding here, because he keeps making me feel like when he goes in, he's one version of himself, and when he comes out, he's a different version of himself. So if this is not a physical injury, could you take it as more of like a mental health injury in the way we understand it today, or like a PTSD type of a change in his personality?
Change his personality. I wouldn't say PTSD.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
And I'm not giving formal diagnoses.
Well, no,
There's
because a lot of people, from when he went in have that.
there's just this feeling of him being a different version of himself when he
Yes.
comes home. Not so happy-go-lucky, not so there's just a weightiness in his emotion that I feel
Hmm.
like when he shows me this younger self when you guys are growing up, it's like he's a bit of a daredevil kid. You know what I mean? He's the first one to
Yeah.
be like, hey, let's see if Rich can fly off the roof. You know what I mean? It's like, and you're the little one. So does he actually do that? And you guys have something where you're like jumping off of high things like that?
It wasn't the roof.
It looks like the
um,
roof of a garage or like a side building to me, is the way
well,
he's showing it to me.
yeah, I mean, uh,
Possibly. Uh,
yeah, but this was later.
okay,
He
whenever
didn't
it
throw
is.
me off.
No, I'm not saying he threw you off. It was
Right.
more like, let's let Rich try
Yeah.
first.
Uh-huh.
But I feel like that's his personality as a brother. Now, you understand there to be still a lot of I mean, I think we continue to be sad and grieve anyone who we lose to the other side, but he makes me feel like there's a different type of grief around his passing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is his passing more unexpected in the way that it happens?
Yeah, I believe so.
He makes me feel like there's a suddenness to it where even if we know that something's going on with him, we weren't prepared for him to go when he does. Is that fair to
Right.
say?
Yeah.
You understand him taking some responsibility for the way that he passes?
I'm not sure if I understand that.
Okay. I don't quite understand it from him yet. And it's not, when some people have like a completion of suicide, for example, they'll give it to me
Right.
in one way. This doesn't feel exactly like that. This feels like
Right.
he's taking responsibility for aspects that led to or contributed to his passing.
Okay, yes. Yeah.
It's interesting the way he's giving it to me. It's kind of like a roundabout, like he's circling in on it, but I feel like that's his personality when he has to talk about something difficult or something he doesn't want to talk about. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
He's joking and saying he could be kind of like a car salesman when he's a kid, where he's like dragging you all over the place instead of not talking about the thing. I will tell you, I don't know if he's going to give me exact circumstances, but what I will tell you is he has an apology for you. And he's saying all the apologies went to our mom because she was so devastated by the loss of him. But he wants to apologize to you because he feels like he's the big brother that's supposed to be there by your side, guiding you or supporting you through life. And he feels like even though I don't think it's his fault that it happens, he feels like he falls short on that role. Do you know what I mean?
In a way, yeah.
Now, I'm not saying you feel like that. I'm saying he's saying he feels like that there's
Okay.
even a disappointment with him in his passing and in the way that it happens. I wish I was a little more clear on what happened here. Let me see if I can bring him in a little bit. Now, when he comes home from the military, you understand this feeling with him of it being a little more challenging in day-to-day life than he maybe thought it was going to be. Like some people slip right into a job and they right into a relationship and have this great life. He just makes me feel like it's not like that for him.
Right. Yeah.
It feels like it's a little bit like 2 steps forward and 1 step back for him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what he did afterwards.
Yeah, because it's that feeling of like, I think he does some odd jobs. I think he helps out here and there. I think it's kind of like a finding his way type time period.
Yeah.
And there's just this feeling with him of, okay, I think it's much later than that. There's just this feeling with him of not quite being able to find his rhythm again in his like day-to-day life for a good little bit of time there. Can you
Right.
take that?
Yeah.
And there is this feeling with him of like so much love from the family, so much non-judgment, and just saying, giving lots of love to your mom. Your mom's still here though, right?
No.
Oh, she's on the other side too. Okay, I'm like,
Yeah.
why are they all wanting to talk about your mom? But he's just saying like your mom was so supportive of him in that initial transition back into the world. Does that make sense the way I'm saying it?
But you mean after the military?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But not long after he's home, like within the first few years, do we experience some big tragedies within the family?
Yes.
Because it's this feeling with him of like he gets home and he's doing this, like I said, two steps forward and one step back, and then there's like tragedy and difficulty, and some of it feels within the family, even though I'm aware that he's also lost other friends.
Right.
So do your parents kind of pass away during that initial time period when he's back in the
No.
first few years? I
No.
don't quite know what this is with him, but he just makes me feel like it's several tragedies in a row, like dominoes is the way he keeps showing it to me. But he's not telling me exactly what it is, which is unusual. The other thing is, I'm aware of this difficulty in your brother's emotions. So I feel like he moves into this more. It doesn't quite feel right to classify it as like a depression, but it's just this bit of an uncomfortable side to him. Do you know what I mean? Um, like I feel like even when everyone else is laughing and having a good time, he's just not quite himself. Do you know what I mean? Uh,
Yeah.
there
In a
feels like
way.
there's more complexity with him and his emotion. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
Um, okay. Now, you returned from the military before him or after him?
After.
Okay. Um, yeah, there is just I know I'm missing something with him, and I want to know so badly what goes on in here, but I feel like I'm trying to push him to show me, and I'm probably coloring in here with my own mind a little bit. So let me just see where else he wants to go, because maybe if I move away from this, he can bring me back. Um, Okay. There is a little bit of sense with him of he and your dad being quite at odds at times. Is that fair
Hmm.
to say? Especially like when he returns home, it just feels like they are butting heads like two, he's saying two stubborn rams is the way he's saying it. Um, and that putting a lot of emotional toll on mom is the feeling with it. Um, and
Yeah.
then does your mom start to I can't tell where I am in the timeline, but I feel like it's after your brother's return home. Your mom start to have some health challenges in there.
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
If she did,
Um,
she kept it quiet.
I'm gonna flash forward. So does your brother pass away before your mom?
No.
Um, he just makes me feel like it's so complicated in there in the mix. So he's wanting to talk about your mom's health challenge. So maybe if he talks about it, she'll step in. There is this feeling, okay, you understand there's a time where your mom starts to become unwell in her physical body,
Hmm.
like an illness. Um, there's this feeling of your brother wanting to identify that even though he is a grown man, he is terrified when your mom becomes unwell, and has a very hard time uh, processing his fear and emotions around it.
Yeah.
Um, and him just wanting to acknowledge again, this is one of the areas he's talking about where he feels like he's supposed to be this strong leader in the family. And he's saying that you didn't judge him. You have so much like love and forgiveness in your heart for him, but that um, he just wasn't able to face all of these fears around mom's illness in the way that he wishes he did. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, is your sister a big part in helping to be with mom and like orchestrate her caretaking and all of that?
Oh, yes.
Because he's saying that in some ways he had a lot of shame over the way that he handled things, because it's this feeling of him just not springing into the leadership role that he could have, and feeling like, well, maybe your sister was better at helping on this, and the other thing is, I really feel like he withdraws a lot during your mom's illness, your brother. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not that he wasn't around, because I do still feel him present and spending time with mom, but emotionally, I feel like he just kind of defers to what everyone else says is best or wants, and he apologizes for that, just because I know in this period of time where mom's unwell, he feels like a very different version of himself to me. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Um, and then after mom's passing, I and I, I'm struggling with words because I want to say he doesn't take it very well, but I don't know how anyone could take the passing of their mom well, but
Yeah.
he's indicating that he takes it extremely it's extremely devastating to him, even as it compares to the siblings. Is that fair to
Mhm.
say? He just has a really hard time with it. He doesn't feel emotionally prepared. He doesn't feel ready. And you understand this feeling of it being very hard for him to see mom and spend time with her in those last days of her life.
Mhm.
Um, it is him starting to kind of like do that emotional withdrawal. That's the emotion I'm feeling with him, of not that he doesn't want to, but it's so painful for him to, come face to face with what's happening. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
And so he's so sorry about that, because even though I know it's been some time, there's just this feeling with him of wishes he could have processed it differently and supported the family differently. Because I know after mom passes that he has a lot of pain and regret around not getting to say his proper goodbyes or have the closure in the way that he maybe could have. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Okay. Now, I am aware of your mom. Let's see if she's going to communicate a little bit. Now, is this Cancer with mom?
Yes.
Okay. As she's coming in, your mom is so strong, I have to say. She has this incredible strength of like her physical constitution, but I also want to say she's very strong in her mind, to where even when she's unwell, I feel like she's worried about all the kids and all the is she a grandma at this time already?
Oh, yeah.
Because there's
God, I
this
had to
feeling
think
of
for a
like
minute. It's like, wait a minute, I don't have any grandkids, so
I
yes.
know. It's this feeling of her, like, even through her illness, and when we can see this physical decline in her, she's worried about, oh, I want to look put together so I could see the grandkids so they see me the way that they see me. Like, she's so aware of everyone else's emotions. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but she does bring very much this feeling, oh, this is a different side of you I'm learning about. She's indicating that when it comes to your mom, you have such a tender heart in a way that might surprise other people because of how you present in the world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you spend quite a bit of time sitting with her in those last couple weeks of her
Yes.
life? Because
Yeah.
she's indicating that you like almost wouldn't leave her side. Where I can feel them coming in and saying, like, well, you need to eat something, or do you want a break? And you being like, no, I'm fine. Like, I'm fine. But she's indicating she understands now it was this feeling of you just feeling like you needed to be there, like, just in case
Mhm.
you didn't want to miss those last moments with her. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and she is so grateful, not only for that last time, but because no relationship's perfect, but you have a close relationship with her, I want to say, throughout your life. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, she always knows that she's loved by you, and you always know that you're loved by her. Whereas I know it could be a little more challenging in your relationship with dad, is the feeling. There's an up and down there. Mom feels so steady to me in her love, in the way she like defends you guys in the world, like, these are my kids and they're just fine and they're amazing, and you're
Mhm.
not going to say anything bad about them. And now she'll tell you all about yourself, but it's all out of love. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
um Now, even though I know you're there so much in that last period with mom, are you not there exactly at the moment when she transitions?
I don't think I was.
Um, I'm glad that you don't seem like you have like bad feelings about that, because she's indicating that she wouldn't want you to have any bad feelings about that, because it
Right.
was almost like you were trying so hard not to miss that moment.
Yeah.
But your mom, for as loving and as tough of a lady as I know she could be, she feels very strongly about her like dignity and grace, and about the emotions that she leaves everyone with. And it is this sense with her of, no, I would have wanted it to be when I was by myself and I just kind of fell asleep. Is that how you understand it to be, where she just kind of becomes less conscious over time?
Yeah.
And then there's like I'm aware that there's an event that happens right at the end, but it does feel like more of a drifting away for her.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? And she's saying you really helped to facilitate everyone who wanted to see her getting to come through and see her. Did you even drive a little ways to kind of collect some people that feel like potentially her grandkids that wanted to come and see her and be with her?
N I no, not to collect people, no.
Not you. Okay. Let me see if you can understand it this way. Does she have, I don't necessarily know that they're her grandkids. They almost feel like they're like grandnieces and nephews that lived a little ways away that someone has to actually like bring in from like a couple hours distance.
May have been, yeah.
Because there's just this feeling of like lots of extended family having the opportunity to see her and be with her. And I do think you know this, but there's a feeling that it makes her so, so happy. Do you know what I mean? To
Yeah.
realize that she touched so many lives. She feels like she could have been a school teacher to me. She has such a like a sweet, loving but strong disposition. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The other thing is she does feel like she had a good long life, even though I'm aware that she would have liked to have traveled more. I think she would have liked to have seen like all of the islands that we have. Um, but does she and your dad go on some kind of trip to either like Hawaii or an island like Jamaica or an island like that?
They went on, yeah, it was a cruise.
Because there's this feeling of like she gets to do it a little bit, but kind of like,
Right.
oh well, if I had more time and I had it my way, I would make sure I got to every tropical place. And
Yeah.
her, I can hear her joking and saying that your dad feels like that's kind of a frivolous vacation. Like he prefers vacations to like where there's been a war or where there's like something historical. Um, but she's got this twinkle in her eye, and it's this feeling of like, she gets her way eventually in there with dad.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Um, now, okay. I am aware with your mom that she is bringing someone else forward. Okay. I feel like you might have told me this. You lost a daughter.
Yes.
Okay. Are you okay to hear from her?
Absolutely.
Okay. I want to say your mom, the way that I'm starting to experience your daughter is much younger than I feel like she actually would be now. Is she fairly young in her life when she passes away?
Big time.
Okay. Because she feels to me like still a kiddo when she passes away. She's still a kid.
Um, well, she was actually stillborn.
Okay. So she doesn't really get a chance to spend much time as a kid.
No.
There is just this feeling with her. That's why I wasn't quite understanding. She kept flashing me these different ages, but not making the pictures around them move. And then she's indicating that she would be probably like in her like late 20s or early 30s now. Is that right?
Um,
I know
yeah.
mental math is hard, but then she keeps flashing me back. That's why I'm like, I know I'm experiencing her at an age that's very different from the age she would be now. But there is a sense of, you have other kids after her. She's not the last one. Is that right?
Yes.
She needs you to know that she was so happy about that and that would have been her wishes for you guys, especially mom, because mom needed more. Mom needed
Right.
more than just her. Do you have one kiddo before she comes and then it's more after?
Yes.
Because there's this feeling of like she's in the middle. She's an older sister, but she's not the oldest. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
She's also a younger sister. And she's talking about with the one that was here before her, how that even though they didn't necessarily express it a lot, that affected them quite a bit too, her loss, because we were all so excited and it was such a joyous thing in the family that she was coming and that she was going to be a
Mm-hmm.
girl. And I'm aware that there are lots of little, maybe not lots, but I'm seeing at least 2 sets of little booties that have been knitted for her, hand knitted, and they're so, so soft the way she shows them to me. You still have these? Or your wife, maybe?
Oh
It's
God.
okay if you don't know. You know what I'm talking about, though, right?
Yeah.
And also, just so you know, you never have to share or validate with anyone else. If it feels like it'd be more upsetting to your wife, you don't have to tell
Right.
her. But there is this sense of your wife having a little box of her things
Mm-hmm.
that we keep. But do you guys actually have a photo with your daughter that was
Yes.
taken of the 3 of you? And
Yeah.
she's saying it's like you can still almost feel the little fuzz of her head. Do you know what I
Well,
mean?
not the 3 of us, but of her, yes.
There wasn't one with the 3 of you?
Not that I recall.
Pin it back there, because the way she's showing it to me, it's like, I'm aware of your wife holding her, and I'm aware of you kind of leaning in from the, I guess you'd be on this side, whatever side this is. And just this feeling of, okay, you understand that there are some challenges right at the end of the pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's this feeling of excitement all the way up to, and then there's this feeling of she's indicating that mom knew something was wrong.
Yes.
Mom knew something wasn't right. And then we get checked out, and then that's kind of confirmed that there's a problem with the heartbeat. And then we're wondering if it's just her position, or if it's there's this little short period of time of uncertainty, is the way she's saying it. And she's so sorry for that period, because she's so aware of your emotions. Because even though, her physical body's not working, her soul stays with you, during that time. And she is aware that, I think you do it too, but particularly she's talking about her mom going through everything she did in that period. Did she eat something weird? Did she have a fall? And there was like, there's nothing. Do you know
Talking
what I
about my
mean?
wife.
Yeah, her own mom.
Right.
And to look at her, I have to say, when she is born, she looks perfect. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she just looks like a beautiful little angel, just like you would think that she would. But she's saying something internally didn't form quite strong enough in her. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
There was some internal problem in her systems that just didn't quite form solidly, but to look at her, you would never know, is the way she's saying it. And the other thing is, she gives so much love and gratitude for you guys allowing her to have this experience, because she's saying it also wasn't her path to be here in the physical world in a body that was incapacitated in some way. Even if it's like her mind wouldn't have been quite right, or something wouldn't have been quite right, that wasn't her journey. Her journey was just to be with you guys for that short time.
Right.
But there's a sense of so much gratitude around the time that she does get with you, because she's saying you were talking to her in her mom's belly all the time. Like, she knows the resonance of your voice, and she'd even, like, this isn't quite right the way I'm going to say it, I just know the emotion that she makes me feel, but she would like dance in there when you would start talking. It's like I can feel her doing a little dance. So she must have had reaction to your voice and moved or pushed or did something earlier on when you would talk to her. And she's talking about that her mom used to read her stories when she was in the tummy, and that she got to hear and be around you guys all the time. And even her other sibling would come and talk to mom's belly and talk to her. So she does need you to know that she knows just how loved she was in the world. Now, your mom is already on the other side when your daughter crosses. Is that right?
No.
She's
Not my mom,
indicating being received by a woman who feels very loving and very nurturing, and just like, I'm going to tell you the way she's giving it to me. It's a little unusual, but she just, obviously they don't have a physical body on the other side, but she makes me feel like it's a woman with a very warm and inviting, comfy bosom that would like hug her in. And so I don't know if you have a grandma like that, that would have been over there to meet her. And just this feeling of like the woman that meets her, if it's your grandma and not hers, I could take it that way. But there's this sense of like arms that wrap around you, and there is so much warmth and love emitted from this woman that it's like it was the perfect place for her to be received. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, with the way that you memorialize your daughter, is there something that you do every year privately that you remember her? I don't think it's like an action in the world. I think you remember her all the time. There's two things. One, I think you think of her all the time, is what she's saying. Particularly when you're driving, there's kind of a long straight road that you drive down sometimes. Should you think of her a lot over there?
Yeah. Used to. Yeah.
Used to. Okay, I can take it that way. But then she's saying you also sometimes would fantasize or imagine, as she would grow, like what she would have been doing. And she's like, oh, he wanted me to do like t-ball when I was 6 and 7. And is that Right? Like that that these are the things you thought about over the years. Do you know what I mean?
My thought was I was gonna find a convent for her right away.
Put her there forever. But there is just this feeling with her of just you imagining her growing, and
Yeah.
especially she's saying as you saw her siblings, you kind of could understand what she might have looked like and what her little hair would have looked like. And
Yes.
um, there's just very much this feeling of you remembering her and thinking of her over those years. She's with you right in those moments. And it's the same as if those things had happened for her. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, it doesn't, I'm not sure that it's exactly on her birthday, but I feel like it's either right before or right after the time that she would be born, that there's something that you do just internally. And I don't know if it's just that you acknowledge the day or whatever it is. Um, and there's something that mom does, but I don't think you guys talk about it. And I don't think you do it together, is the way she's saying it. It's okay if you don't
Okay.
know what it is. But there is just this feeling of her being remembered, not just once a year, but like certainly around that time. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Now, I almost feel like your wife takes a little bit of time by herself around that time, and just kind of wants to process within. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? But she's indicating that she's always with your wife, her mom, during those moments, and it feels like it's an every year thing that she memorializes her.
Yeah.
And she also keeps bringing me to flowers, so I don't know if it's you giving her mom flowers around that time or mom wanting flowers in the house around that time every year. But it looks like you know what I'm talking about now.
Yeah, I believe I do know what you're talking about.
Okay. Because there's just this feeling with her of don't think that all these things go unnoticed by her. Don't think that
Right.
she's somewhere far away and doesn't know. um, Even now, she does have one sister in the world, is that right?
Yes.
She's talking about even when her sister was like losing teeth and like at that age that she was around, and when it was like this big fiasco and she was scared about losing her teeth, she's like, I didn't miss anything. Like, I'm such a part of my family. I haven't missed anything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you have I mean, you've got a long sleeve shirt on, so I don't even know if you have any tattoos, but do you have some kind of a memorial tattoo that is for her in some way?
I have tattoos, but no, not for her.
Um, okay. And you don't know if one of her siblings has some kind of tattoo that I don't think it's like her name. I don't think it's a picture of her, but she makes me feel like it's a nod to the memory and the love of her.
I know they both want to get one.
Okay, they haven't done it yet. I could take it that
Right.
way because it's like it's just this feeling of like the love is so present
Yeah.
day, even though it's been many, many years. And
Mhm.
don't think that that is unnoticed or unfelt by her, is really her message here. Putting extra love around mom at Mother's Day, which is coming up as we record this,
Mhm.
and her just saying that it's a very bittersweet day for mom. You guys have grandkids now too?
No.
Not yet.
No.
Um, okay, well, I don't do prediction, and prediction is hard. But what month are we in? We're in May as we're recording this. I would just pin it back there that I feel like, and I don't know if it's your like kids proper, but that a new pregnancy or baby is going to be announced, is what she's saying. So you can
Cool.
report back. I want to say within 4 months someone will be announcing. So, like I said, don't know if it's one of your kids, but she makes me feel like it's her generation in the family. So,
That'd be cool.
yeah, we'll see. But
Yeah.
it is just very much a sense of her wanting just to acknowledge that she knows that she's never been forgotten, and that, she's still remembered all the time. And the way that you imagine her, it's like she keeps showing me the way that you've kind of envisioned her over the years as like your little sidekick, like your little, just like your little ride along friend. And she's like, that's exactly who I am. And even though she doesn't get to spend a lot of time in a physical body to do that, doesn't mean that she hasn't been by your side all along. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
Now, There is very much a sense with your mom, because your mom's the one who brought her forward for me. There's very much a sense with your mom of don't worry that they've gotten to know each other quite well in the years that your mom's been there, and that they your mom's funny because she's like, we're all together, and then she makes me aware of your dad, and then she says we don't all have to always be in the exact same place at the exact same time, but we're all together whenever we want to be. And I feel like that's part of the dynamic with your mom and dad. There's so much love there that was a long love, but they also don't always want to be in the same room all the time. Do you know, like they need little breaks from each other. And it just goes to like, that is their relationship. Do you know what I mean? Which I love. Your mom, for as nurturing and loving as I experience her, she has like a wicked sense of humor too, I have to say. Like,
Oh yeah.
I think she found you guys a lot more amusing than probably dad. You know what I mean? Like I think you could make mom laugh and get over on her a little bit. You know what I mean? Now, are all your kids grown at this point?
When my
Your
mom
kiddos?
passed?
No, now. Like all your kids grown already?
Yes.
Is your mom's kind of teasing you about when you were raising them and saying like, oh, you see, it's not so, they drive you crazy and you love them and you think they're hilarious and you also want them to stop it, and she's like, you see, it's not as easy as you might have thought. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And she's saying that you're actually a lot like her, where even though you try to put on a tough guy face, your heart can be melted and won over in like a snap. You know what I mean? She's
Mm-hmm.
funny. I would have not expected that of you, Rich. Interesting. And she said it drives your wife crazy sometimes over the years because she's got to be more of the disciplinarian, and she doesn't, you know what I mean? It's not her. She's a sweetheart too, so it's not her nature. But if one of you's got to do it, she's like, I
Yeah.
can't believe you're letting them have popsicles before dinner again. Like it's that kind. And you're like, well, they made the big eyes and they it's just one. So it's just it's so funny that your mom knows and wants you to know that she's like, I've been seeing all these years. And just, of course, your mom is so proud of you as well, but wants to put a lot of love to your wife too. Were your mom and your wife close?
I would say so, yeah.
She just puts a lot of love around your wife of I know she's not the only woman in the family, but being one of the women that carries on that matriarchal torch in the family. And she's indicating that your wife is such a strong female figure in the family that people outside of even just your little nuclear family, like extended family members, come to your wife for advice and for support over the years. I don't think it's recent, but it feels like it's
Mm-hmm.
years ago that there were, I don't know if it's your siblings or who it is, but are your sister and your wife close?
I mean, they talk, but not close like sisters.
Not close like sisters, but there's just, I was asking your mom, like, what is she talking about? And it's a sense of like, over the years, your wife shows up for people in the family. If something goes wrong with them, it's like your wife is participating and helping and
Yeah.
organizing. And your mom just really feels like she has done a fantastic job of continuing to be one of the strong women in the family. Not
Okay.
that the men aren't strong, but it just does feel like there's something about as your mom leaves, your wife steps up into a different role a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Or more
Mm-hmm.
into that role as time goes on. And your mom just wanting to acknowledge her as an amazing and powerful part of the family. And teasing you that she doesn't always get enough credit for it, even though I'm very aware of you giving your wife lots of compliments and lots of love. Oh, your mom is funny, but I feel like this is her personality, where she's like, maybe jewelry this year for Mother's Day. But I feel like that's your mom's personality. Am I calling you out on your gift right now? You're making a face.
Yeah.
Okay, well, your mom approves. And there is this feeling of like that not that you didn't always appreciate your wife, but just in these last like 2 years, there's been some type of deepening of the way that you appreciate her and the closeness that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm saying, it's not that it wasn't there before, but it just feels like there's a deepening or a difference, but in the best possible way.
Yeah.
So, oh, well, thank you for sharing all of them with me now that I've talked for almost an hour
Oh
nonstop.
no, thank you.
Do you have anything you want to share about the fam while I've got you? I mean, I feel
Well,
like that was their personalities pretty good.
well, the funny thing is with the jewelry, because my wife picked out what she wanted for Mother's
Oh,
Day.
funny. No wonder your mom's like, maybe
Yeah,
jewelry this year.
but
I'm sure
she
your
went.
wife was like,
It's
maybe jewelry this year.
yeah, and I don't really buy my wife jewelry.
That's why
But
that's why I thought it was unusual that she was saying it, because it's like,
eh,
oh, this must be something different. So
but it's two necklaces, one longer than the other, and a f- they're both flowers. I think one's a daisy, one's a rose,
hmm.
and one has they both. So one has our one daughter's name, the other one has our other daughter's name, and that's what she
Wow.
wanted.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
amazing. That
Um,
so that maybe is what I wasn't quite getting from your daughter that we were talking to about flowers being close to mom for Mother's Day too. Sometimes they'll bring it, I think there's another reference to it. They'll bring it so layered, which is so amazing.
my mother-in-law always brings flowers to my wife on
Oh, for your daughter's
the
birthday.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yep,
Wow.
yeah. Um,
How amazing
and
that your daughter knows that.
the other thing of when you kept saying the long drive,
Yeah.
so my mother had given me an angel that you clip onto your sun visor,
Okay.
or and I because I was always on the road. The one job I was constantly on the road, and I would
Oh, okay. So
always
you were driving a lot for work.
yeah. But the funny thing is now my mother my mother and father weren't together when my daughter passed.
Yeah.
And it's like that when that happened, it's like it brought everybody together.
Wow.
And my mother had, I guess she must have got it at the gift store at the hospital or whatever, but it was a little angel sitting on a music box, and that music box played Amazing Grace. And I was able to put it, even though our daughter was stillborn, I was able to put it in her hand, and because I wanted something that my daughter held,
Yeah.
and put that. And to this day, even though the angel fell off the music box, the angel sits on my nightstand.
Wow.
And every night before I go to bed, I always pick up that angel, give her a kiss, tell her good night, and I'll say a prayer.
Okay.
Every morning when I wake up, I grab my angel, give her a kiss, say a prayer. Then I also have what I call my grateful rock that our other daughter got me when she was little. It looks like a heart. And I'll
Aw.
grab that grateful rock and say something that I'm grateful for. Um,
Wow.
and there's a picture of my daughter in a frame, of the one we lost right there
Yeah.
in a frame.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
so
wonder if she's talking about you talking to her every day and spending time with her, and
oh, all the time. And
that's
actually, the
amazing.
funny thing, so St. Patrick's, every St. Patrick's Day, because my mother and father are at the same cemetery where our daughter is, and our
Yeah.
daughter, because she was stillborn, we were able to put her in the same
Like
site
space.
space on top of my great grandmother,
Oh,
and right behind my
wow.
great grandmother is my grandmother.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So every St. Patrick's Day, because my father, Irish, eh, big, that was our holiday. And he passed 2 days before St. Patrick's Day.
Oh
So
my
every St.
gosh.
Patrick's Day, all of us go to the cemetery. Um, it used to be like a 6-pack of beer. Now I haven't gone in years. I went this year, and my brother brings a freaking cooler.
Oh, funny. That's a big
Yeah.
party now.
So all of us, and my daughter said, and the only reason I went this year, my daughter turned 21 and she wanted to go.
Oh, that's cool.
And the funny thing is, so we sit there and have a drink with dad and mom. Well, my sister has coffee for mom. So,
That's funny.
but then we have to walk over a little bit to where our daughter is. And my other daughter, whose name is Grace, which is why we named her that, um,
Mm.
said, well, Maggie would have been 22. My daughter just turned 21, so Maggie would have been 22. So can we go over there? Because she's old enough now.
That's
So
cute. I
we
love it.
walked over there with me, my son, my daughter, my wife,
Wow.
and both my daughter and my son, of course, or yeah, my daughter and my son sitting there drinking a beer, for pouring it on. It's like, oh God, great, you guys are getting her drunk.
That's funny.
But it's my son was young at the time because he's only 30, and
Wow.
when he was so excited to have a little sister,
Oh, so
and
that's what she's talking about really affected
yeah,
him in a deep
oh,
way.
it did, and then oh, and my older brother affected him big time.
Yeah.
He's the my older brother he was always my best friend and my idol. If I had any problems, he's the one I could talk to.
Wow.
Um, and he's the first person I called
I
when I
bet.
found out that Maggie was stillborn.
Yeah, I bet.
And he came there. I'd never seen anybody do this. He literally ripped a no parking sign straight out of the ground,
Oh
concrete and
my
all.
gosh.
Yeah. I mean, he was just, he was that upset.
Yeah.
But he was, and he passed 6 years ago. But I
Wow.
think the tragedy you mentioned afterwards, he lost his eye.
Oh, interesting. That's why I couldn't quite understand. I'm like, I know there's an injury here, but I didn't feel like it was like where he couldn't still maneuver in life. But
Oh
oh,
yeah, he was able to.
interesting. Yeah.
Actually, the weird thing is he drove a tractor trailer even with one eye,
Wow.
and he was
What
probably
a
one of the best
guy.
tractor trailer drivers out there.
My gosh. I could feel why he would feel like he wanted to still be that brother for you, especially because you
Yeah.
said he really idolized
Oh,
him. And
in all honesty, his death was probably one of the hardest on me.
yeah.
And
Oh,
my mom, so wait a minute. So my father passed first, and then it was mom, and they were both. My brother built an addition onto my sister's house for my mom and
wow.
dad.
That's
So we were
amazing.
fortunate enough that even both of them, when they were dying, both on home hospice.
Yeah.
So we were fortunate for that. At the time, I was always on the road. I was in the IT field, and my biggest fear at the time was that I would be on the road and get the call about my mom.
Oh, that's what she was talking
Sure
about when you
enough,
would
I
just sit there and
was.
wouldn't leave. Yeah. Okay. And
Yeah.
when she was saying you
Uh,
couldn't be there at the end. Oh,
yeah. It
interesting.
tore me up. I was,
Yeah.
I forget it. Well, let's see. We're outside of Baltimore. So we're northeast of Baltimore. I was down by DC, Andrews Air Force Base, when I got the
That's a
call.
hike.
So
Yeah.
probably about an hour and a half ride. And the office called me because I don't even know if I had a cell phone. I can't remember. Um, but the office called me, and it's like I had tunnel vision. And my older brother called me a little bit later. He's like, "Where you at?" I said, "Hold on a minute." And I said, "Oh, damn, I'm coming up to the tunnel." He said, "What?" He said, "How fast you going?" I looked down. I said, "Oh shit."
Oh
Oh, sorry.
man.
I was going over 100 miles an hour.
Wow.
I didn't even realize it. I just had tunnel vision the
Yeah.
whole
You're just
time.
trying to get there.
Yeah. And it was shortly, or was that? Yeah, that was mom.
I wonder your mom was
That was
saying she
mom.
didn't want you to have any feelings about not being there
Yeah.
at the end because she'd been there so much.
And
Man.
what made me feel guilty, in all honesty, about my mom, I remember sleeping on the couch at my sister's the one night, and her and dad went on a cruise. I always wanted a crucifix. I never had a crucifix. So they got me a crucifix, and I remember laying on my sister's couch at night, holding it, praying to God to take her so
Mm,
she would no longer be in pain.
yeah.
And I always felt guilty about that. I
Yeah.
don't know why, because after
It's a
she
tough
passed, I didn't.
emotion.
Yeah, but
That's a
after she
tough
passed, I
emotion.
didn't. It's just, yeah, it is. But
Wow.
yeah, she was always and it was funny because people were scared to death of my father, but it was my mom you need to be afraid
That's what's
of.
funny is like I was saying, for as nurturing and loving as she is, like she will tell you all about yourself and
Oh yeah.
she could get, I mean, for as hard as she could laugh, I think she could be equally strict when she needed to be. Man, well,
Oh, she was.
thank you so much for sharing them with
Oh,
us
thank
and
you.
and letting
Thank
us
you.
experience them. And it was so great working with you.
Oh, my daughter's gonna love this.
Aw, well, thank you.
Thank you, Joy.
What an amazing experience with Rich's family. What a beautiful job they did validating their presence, sharing things about themselves that I definitely couldn't have known. I loved getting to feel the difference between his dad and his brother and his mom, and of course, his beautiful daughter, and the validations that they gave, not only about themselves and their own lives, but about the family and the family dynamic and the personalities within the family. And I love that Rich's mom kind of outed him on his Mother's Day gift for this year, which is so fun. And I love that his daughter knew that, flowers were in the house every year for the anniversary of her birth. And Rich was able to validate that, yeah, his mother-in-law sends flowers every single year and they're always in the house on her birthday, which was such a beautiful validation. Spirit world really does know what to bring to validate their personalities or memories about them or things about their lives in ways that I could never know. So I'm so grateful to Rich's family on the other side for being willing to communicate, and I want to send so much love to Rich and his family on this side around the love that they still share with their loved ones in the spirit world. It's a little different for me every time when I work. As I tell you guys, I feel the presence of them. I can often feel emotions that they're sharing. I get little flashes of images, and I get thought blocks really in my head that aren't necessarily in my own voice. So it's a lot of things happening all at once, and then to have to figure out what to say and to say it in a way that can be understood. So those are all the things that go on during a reading, but I'm glad you got the opportunity to see kind of the quote unquote magic that takes place, or really it's the love of the spirit world that orchestrates everything and pulls everything together. So I am so grateful to Rich and the whole Bennett family for being here this side and the other. Hopefully, if his family does hear this, they feel honored and their hearts can be touched as well. And please know that it was such an honor for me to get to spend a little bit of time with the souls of Rich's dad and his brother and his mom and his beautiful daughter. So hopefully this opened your mind just a little bit to what communicating with the spirit world through a medium can look like. And again, I was so honored to get to meet them and bring forward details of their life, and so grateful that the spirit world's willing to work with me in this way. And a big thank you again to Rich for being so open-hearted and open-minded and coming on the show and allowing you to sit in on his very personal private reading. So thanks to Rich. Thanks to the spirit world, and thanks to you for being here with me inside the Spirit Speakeasy. As usual, big hugs, lots of love, and I will see you next time inside the Spirit Speakeasy.